All right, Joshua chapters 6 through 8. You know, I start reading the chapters and I figure, oh, nothing interesting here, same old, same old. And then you always find something else. So we have a lot of extra notes today. So don't forget to read those. Thank you, Gary, for your extensive research. Always.
He's a theologian. No? Oh, I don't know. I think a theologian, you're studying it.
All right. So, yes, Gary, he's got some great stuff. Where's that water? Okay. So, Jericho, most of us only know about Jericho from what we've heard in the song.
Joshua fought the battle of Jericho. Jericho.
Yeah, that's
Jericho.
it. That's all we know. So that's why we have
Came tumbling down. Yep.
That's why we have a whole bunch of notes on Jericho. So we understand what Jericho is, where it was, what it was all about. And when you read the extra notes, you find that the walls of Jericho falling down, that was a big deal. Because the walls were like 25 feet thick. It was incredible, this place. So, and that's mostly what most people know about Jericho, is just what they hear from that little ditty. So when you get a chance, read the extra notes, and you'll understand about Jericho and why it was such a big deal. So, is there someone left hanging out there?
No, we're all here.
Okay, who's got the blue boxes next to them?
It's just because the arrow's there.
Oh, okay. All right, so the whole reason for God's battle plan for Jericho was to teach the Israelites obedience. Because so far, most of their battles have been easy for them. And they've been easy for them because God allowed them to win these battles. So God wants to make sure that he continues to remind the Israelites that it's not them. It's not their military power that causes them to win these battles. It's only because of him. So that's why he came up with this incredible battle plan of, you guys are just going to walk around the town once a day until the last day, and then you walk around it 7 times blowing bugles, and then I'll give you the city. And he didn't tell them what giving the city means. So imagine what they felt like when they were walking around the building on that last day, blowing the trumpets and screaming, which was normal military practice at the time to try to scare people. And then all of a sudden, the walls come tumbling down. So nobody could expect that. So these guys finally understand that God is responsible for everything that's happened to them. From the first day they walked out of Egypt till forever.
Okay.
Okay. And then we hear about, we see a lot about be devoted. In verse 16, the 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord." So we know from our Old Testament studies in the past that when they walked into cities that were in the promised land, be devoted means it's just like a sacrifice. That everything in the city was going to have to be sacrificed to God. Totally. Men, women, children, animals, everything was sacrificed. That means killed and then usually burnt. We first heard that about this idea of devoting cities in Exodus chapter 22. And God says, "Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed." Because God was worried that the Israelites would follow the pagans, and they did so often. Remember, it wasn't Balaam. Was it Balaam? No, Balaam was the guy that was cursing them. Where they had the women seduce the Israelites, and they just went along with it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a constant story, and this is why God has to get rid of these people, because for one reason, God knows these people are not going to repent. Because last week we heard that the Canaanites weren't destroyed earlier because the extent of their evil hadn't happened yet. God knew they were going to continue sinning. And this law, it's called a ban, the law of wiping out these people was given to the Israelites in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 10 through 18. And I gave you guys a supplement of that section of Deuteronomy so you can read that. And this law was actually divided up into two parts. The first part was the land that was in the promised land, which was full of Canaanites. In those situations, in most cases, unless God relented, people would have to be totally wiped out. So they couldn't influence the Israelites. For cities not in the promised land, only the men would be destroyed because, of course, those are the fighting men, and they could cause revenge, and everything else could be taken as the spoils of war. And the interesting thing is, it wasn't just the Israelites that did this. Other countries did it, and that's where the supplement, the Mesha steel comes in. That's the supplement that has that big rock on the front, the Mesha steel. This is a separate document that archaeologists found that backs up the story of the Bible, how this occurred among other people, how they would wipe out entire countries. So whenever anybody says that God was a vengeful God, or God, the Old Testament God was a God of wrath, show them this document and say, look, most people in that time did the same thing. They wiped out people also. So it wasn't just God. God's reason was so the Israelites wouldn't follow the pagans. Other countries' reasons were that's just the way you did things.
To conquer.
Just to conquer, right? So, interesting document. And usually what happens is, as I'm reading the commentaries, they'll throw out this rabbit hole and they'll say, well, it's just like the Mesha steel. So then I have to go on the web like Gary does for Google and find the stuff, and it's always interesting. So that shows that everybody else did it. Verse 21, after the walls fall down, the trumpets sounded, the army shouted, at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everybody charged straight in, and they took the city. Verse 21, they devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys.
Okay.
Yep.
I know. I just have trouble with it, but that's okay. Different time.
Then you'll have to read this supplementary
I
document,
know.
and it'll explain everything about it. Oh, another thing. On the Mesha steel, you see that it has different colored parts. What happened is, in modern times, like in the 1920s or so, archaeologists found this stone, and the nomads that had it thought, well, you shouldn't take it out of our country. So they tried to destroy the stone. So the only parts left are the brown fragments. The dark fragments are pieces they had to reconstruct. So that's why it's kind of broken up. Like, good document. It's interesting stuff. So we get upset about that, but we know that it was normal at the time, and we know God's reason. So everybody got wiped out except who?
Rahab.
Rahab. And why didn't she get wiped out?
Because she had hidden the spies.
Right? And then they gave her what?
Sanctuary.
They gave her sanctuary. They gave her a little red string, right? And because they saw the little red string, they passed over her house, just like in Passover, remember?
That's right.
Because she couldn't splash blood on her windowsill or her doors because somebody would have figured that out.
Yeah.
So they just gave her a little red string, and that's all it took. So So verse 25, but Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her. So Joshua is keeping the promise that the two spies made to her in Joshua chapter 2. And Rahab goes on to marry Salem, and then they have a son, Boaz, and then she gets included in the line of Jesus. So she plays a huge part in the Bible, not just in this section, but down the line. So, good girl, even though she's in the book, Bad Girls of the Bibles. Verse 26, at that time Joshua pronounced this solemn oath. Cursed before the Lord is the one who undertakes to rebuild the city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son, he will lay its foundations. At the cost of his youngest, he will set up his gates. And the thing is, that curse actually came true. This guy, Heel of Bethel, he did rebuild Jericho. And his firstborn son died, Abiram, and his youngest son, Segub, died also. So they didn't listen to the curse, they rebuilt the city, and they were actually cursed. Now some commentaries said that since Heel was a Canaanite, that he might have sacrificed his two sons in order to build Jericho. So in either case, the curse came true. Either it came true at the hands of Heel, the guy who rebuilt Jericho, or it came true at the hands of God. Either way, God had his revenge, as Joshua said so. Okay,
They had some weird stuff back then.
Well, remember the Moabites and the Canaanites?
Yeah.
They sacrificed their children. And we know, the Mexican tribes, the Mexican Indians, Aztecs, they would sacrifice their children.
Yes.
So it's something that occurred.
I think in Hawaii too.
I think you're right.
They threw them into the volcano.
Yeah, I think
Ew.
probably.
Hold on. I can't do this sideways. Sorry. I'm freaking here. Hold on.
They'll hold on. They won't go away.
Sorry. There he is. Okay, here. I miss my mouse. I don't like.
Well, it's there somewhere.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Pastor,
Yes, sir.
a couple of thoughts in chapter 6.
Yeah.
One, when they crossed the Jordan, they couldn't be within a certain distance of the ark. They'd be destroyed.
Yes.
How then, as they were circling Jericho, would not the own Israelites get destroyed?
Well, let's, in our, I didn't find it in the notes, but we'll have to find out where was the ark parked during the battle.
It was in Jordan, or in the Jordan River.
Who parked the ark?
But
Where was it parked?
did the ark go ahead of the soldiers as they marched around Jericho, or was it parked somewhere?
He
I thought
said
it was with them as they marched.
Okay, let's find that out. Let's do a little bit more research and find out, did they park it somewhere safe, or did the ark lead them around Jericho, and how much of a distance would there have to be? Christy's Googling that now, so we might find out.
Thought number 2.
Yeah,
Since Rahab's house was on the wall and the walls came tumbling out, how in the world did she escape, and how could they identify the cord?
let's see here. All right, let's go to verse 24. Okay, let's back up to verse 22. So
I
Joshua,
really like your questions, Gary.
Yep, he's got good stuff.
Too much technical stuff.
That's okay. That's good. So let's back it up a little bit. Okay, so the wall collapsed
It says here they brought her out.
Yeah, in verse 20, it says the walls collapsed. In verse 22, Joshua said to the two men who had spied out the land, go to the prostitute's house. Now, what could have happened, maybe all the walls didn't fall down. Maybe the walls in a certain section fell down. So we'll have to find that out. That's my first guess, Gary. Is that just a section fell down, enough for the guys to rush in?
Because I had the impression the walls fell out and then they could go in and slaughter
Yeah,
everything.
that's what I would have thought first because, well, it says the wall collapsed, so that would kind of indicate the whole thing. But Joshua said to the two men, after the walls fell down, go to the prostitute's house and bring her out.
But if she had her red string hanging there, they wouldn't have found it if the wall fell down.
Well, but remember, he sent the two spies,
Oh, okay.
so they know where she lives.
Okay.
Okay?
So it says that they had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord with the trumpets keeping sound. So on the second day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days.
Okay, so we don't know if the ark accompanied them on days 2 through 7.
Correct.
Okay.
I
And
would
what ver-
assume because in Jericho they figured the Israelites were nuts on what they were doing.
yeah, yeah. So what chapter was that, hon?
That was in Bible Gateway.
Oh, Bible Gateway. But does it give a chapter and verse?
Let me go back to it. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Joshua 6.
Okay, so what verse?
NIV.
What verse?
It just says Joshua 6.
Okay.
It doesn't give me a verse, sorry. It's a commentary.
Okay. Yeah, because in Joshua 6, verse 3,
Oh,
God tells Joshua, march around the city once with all armed men, do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram horns in front of the ark. So that seems to me that the priests are to be there every day.
except on the 7th day they came back.
On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets.
On the 7th day the Ark of the Covenant led them around the city of Jericho 7 times.
Okay, so the ark is still with them.
Correct.
So, to Gary's point, they had to have such a large distance between the ark and everybody that sooner or later you would expect with all these men they would run in or they'd get closer to the ark. Unless Jericho is that big. All these questions.
How big are the walls of Jericho?
Well, we want the circumference.
Yep, built 800 BC. They were at least 13 feet in height and 28 feet tall. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, we need the circumference of the city.
How around? Okay. Keep going.
Okay, so
I'm looking it up.
what we know so far is the ark did go around them for 7 days. We need to find out what the circumference. Who's our mathematician here?
I'm retired.
Okay, so our calculation would need the circumference of the city, the length of the soldiers from front to back, and subtract from that the distance that the ark had to be between people.
Okay, it says there were about more than 70 homes in there.
That's not telling me what I need to know.
Oh,
Okay, we'll continue.
All right, another thought.
Another one.
stop it, Gary.
Yeah, another one. For 6 days they had to be quiet. No talking, no shouting. But on the 7th day they shouted. It's kind of like when the Lord returns, there'll be a shout from heaven. Kind of like someplace in Thessalonians they talk about that, shout from heaven. Pretty amazing. And the final thought, the curse, kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, don't look back.
Well, yeah, pillar of salt, and then
Yep.
Sodom and Gomorrah completely destroyed.
And I remember Ben said when we were studying Sodom and Gomorrah that section of the world has the highest concentration of sulfur in it in the world. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I think it would be kind of hard for the soldiers to accept the fact that they could defeat a city by just doing that. Nothing, it was all God's doing, as the messenger from God told Joseph.
It was
Whether, he bowed down, so maybe it was God himself.
430,000 square feet.
Okay, around, does it say?
Yeah.
430,000?
Mm-hmm. Square feet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 2,000 to 3,000 people live there.
Okay, that's fine. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so we've got our first part of our calculation, and maybe if I get the gumption up, I'll force through it.
10 acres.
10 acres?
Yeah.
Okay.
Found another one from the civil engineers say it was 10 acres.
And a square mile is 660 acres. 1 mile by 1 mile.
Something 600 something.
Okay. All right. Something to work on. I'm not sure I'm going to do it. Okay.
No, not.
Joshua 7. We have another supplement. Achan's sin. Achan. Anyway, verse 1. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. So they weren't supposed to take anything out of the city. Everything was supposed to be destroyed. But one guy, Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. Yep,
It was a good sale.
it was a fire sale.
He wanted it.
Yeah. So the
Couldn't
Lord,
resist.
he
Yeah.
couldn't resist. And the stuff he took was so piddly. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. So why was God mad at all of Israel for this one guy?
Not obedient.
He wasn't obedient, and once again, God's afraid that one person could infect everybody. If this one guy got away with taking that robe and a couple pieces of gold and silver, then the next time they were at war and God said don't do it, somebody else might take it because nobody was punished. So this guy's got to get punished.
It would be kind of, in our modern time, one rotten apple in the church could kind of destroy it.
That's it, and that's happened. That's happened. So before this guy came up, verse 2, this is another problem. Joshua sent men from Jericho to